Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Great Shot Kid, the podcast on the Nerd Party Network that is focused on the aspects of filmmaking that sometimes are overlooked. I am one of your hosts, John.
And I'm Mike.
And this week, we're going to be coming at you with some interesting topics, as always. But, of course, you can reach us over at thenerdparty.com/contact. Look up Great Shot Kid. You can find us over on Twitter at Join Nerd Party. Use the hashtag Great Shot Kid. You can find us on Instagram as The Nerd Party or over on Facebook as The Nerd Party. And before we get into our topic for the night, just a gentle reminder to everybody. I know that we have been talking about this on the network, but it is a very sincere plea for any assistance that you can give. The Nerd Party has found itself in a little bit of a legal issue, and we are put in a position where we have to pay a settlement. We don't have business insurance. We are not for profit. This money doesn't go toward anything having to do with operational expenses, but without business insurance, going to trial was not an option for us. And so we are calling on you, the listeners, if you can, to just whatever you can spare, be it $1, be it $2, be it 10, what have you. If you can help us out, go on over to gofundme.com/thenerdparty, and you can see a video there explaining in a little more detail what's going on. And we appreciate everybody that has helped us, and we also appreciate anybody that will be able to help us settle this matter. So thank you very much. So we come to our show tonight, and Mike has just seen for the first time Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, which I can assure everybody, it's been established in a billion other places. I was a diehard Twin Peaks fan. I even stuck through it through the awful parts of the second season to get to an unbearable cliffhanger of a second season finale, and then word comes there's going to be Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me. So, of course, I was going nuts. Oh, my gosh, there's going to be a Twin Peaks movie. I'm so happy and I'm so excited. And I remember going to see it, and I remember all of that stuff, that my reaction at the time, what my opinion of it is now. But, Mike, I got to know, as somebody coming to it with fresher eyes than I had back then or even now, what was your opinion?
I thought it was fine.
Just fine.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I think it's fairly well documented that I'm not a huge David Lynch fan. I don't think I've ever seen a David Lynch movie which I've, really, I definitely haven't seen any which I've loved. I've seen some which I thought were okay, and most of them I've just not liked at all. And
so Blue Velvet is just okay?
No.
Or you didn't like it?
I didn't like it. I saw it in high school, so, maybe that influenced my opinion of it or something, but I didn't like it. Mulholland Drive, I didn't like, as much as I wanted to.
That one I haven't seen. Have you seen Lost Highway?
So freaking weird. Wait, let's back that up for a minute, because Mulholland Drive is like the David Lynch movie. Like, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. Just recently, like, they did that poll of, like, where, like, critics voted on, like, the best films of the, 21st century, and Mulholland Drive was number 1, Like, that's...
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. Well, the thing is, it's at the time that it came out, I don't remember. What year did that come out, even?
It was, like, 2000 or 2001, somewhere in that area.
Okay. So, I know the period of life I was in at that point, which is why I missed it. And it's one of those ones where over time, it's always in the back of my mind. It's actually on my Amazon to watch list, but then I always have homework for something or other, and I'm, it keeps getting bumped down on the queue. Mm-hmm. I had no idea it was regarded as the definitive David Lynch film, because whenever I think of Lynch, I always hear people talk about Wild at Heart, which I haven't seen, Blue Velvet, and Twin Peaks, and especially the new season, and of course his first film, Eraserhead, and then, everybody has the endless conversation about Dune. But I had no idea Mulholland Drive was so high up on it. Maybe I need to elevated up on my list.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who knows nothing about, or who, I mean, I know about Lynch, but I don't know much about like why people like his stuff or whatever. But I think it is pretty well established that Mulholland Drive is the one to see, especially out of the ones that you haven't seen. From what it sounds like, I think most Lynch heads or whatever they're called would say that. But and I did see it just recently. I mean, I saw it in the theater, and I was like, this is too weird for me. And then they did a David Lynch, a complete David Lynch retrospective at a theater in Chicago a little while back, and
that's right, because they used the Black Lodge design on it, and that was when I found out that you hadn't seen Twin Peaks, and my reaction was, what?
Yeah, they
haven't seen Twin Peaks?
They had like that on the carpeting, and I'm like, I don't know what this is. I'm sure that people know, but I don't know what this is. But and like opening night, was Mulholland Drive. They made a big deal out of that. That was going to be the opening night movie, and everything. So I'm like, and there was the whole thing with that critics list and everything like that. So I'm like, I need to watch this movie again. I think that I'm going to really enjoy this movie this time around. And then like before the movie, they showed like all these like random interviews from over the years with David Lynch and all these like short films that he made and stuff like that. And I'm like, I'm ready. Like I get it now. I hear him talk about his movies. I know what he's doing now. I wasn't looking at them the right way, and now I know. And this is how I'm going to watch Mulholland Drive. And then I watch it that way, and I'm like, yeah, this still doesn't work. It still doesn't work, but whatever. I mean, it is so bizarre that movie, because it was originally, intended to be a TV show on like ABC. So like it starts off like the first half. I mean, it's a bit more complex than that, obviously, but the first half is essentially like the pilot, and then they went back and shot, like another hour, which is what like the kind of the second half is. So the first half, it's just like, okay, it's very sort of like Twin Peaksy in terms of tone and everything like that, and also in terms of content, because you got to figure this was going to be on network television, just like Twin Peaks. And then all of a sudden you get to the second half, and it just like completely goes off the rails and becomes this super, super bizarre, abstract thing where they're dropping F-bombs every other minute, and there's like violence and nudity, and like you're like, okay. Once he knew this wasn't going to be on ABC, he just went full out, with everything. And
now, but the thing is, you're the fan of the gear shift.
Yeah.
You love films with gear shifts in them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this one went into like reverse or something. I don't know what was going on with this one, but it went crazy. It went to some crazy places, but and I mean, I guess I appreciated it more now than I did, when I saw it in 2001 or whatever, but it wasn't really. But sort of coincidentally, like right, I guess right before this whole festival started or whatever, I started watching Twin Peaks. And I've been just kind of steadily going along, and I finished it a couple months ago, and, well, the 2 seasons, the original 2 seasons. And and I was always like, well, I'm going to watch Fire Walk with Me after that, And then last night was the night, or 2 nights ago was the night when I was like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to watch Fire Walk with Me. And I did. And I mean, I guess as far as Twin Peaks is concerned, I would say it's the best Lynch thing that I've seen, not counting that short film that they showed after Mulholland Drive where he builds a lamp. I think it's called Lamp, which is literally 20 minutes of him walking you through the process of building a lamp. It's kind of amazing, but regardless, I really did enjoy Twin Peaks for the first, basically until they figured out who killed Laura Palmer.
Right.
After that, it just, it doesn't know what to do, and it just starts meandering.
It doesn't. It doesn't. The whole thing, and the thing is, this has been recounted, by others, many other places, and I'm sure that. Did you watch the extras and stuff like that, or
no? I just watched it on Netflix.
Because the whole thing was that they didn't want to solve the murder, but ABC pressured them into it, saying we can't sustain this. Viewership's dropping. Of course, they moved the show onto Saturday nights, and Saturday night at 10:00 is you're going to get me watching television, not your key demographic.
Yeah.
Back watching television and everything like that, and they didn't. So the word is that Lynch and Frost left. Essentially, their names were still on the credits, but they just said, "Fine, we did our business and we're out." And then the people that were left took over, and you had those crazy plots with James going off with the woman and living above her garage and all of it, and Nadine being the lead cheerleader and everything. And supposedly key cast members reached out to Lynch and Frost and said, "You guys have to come back. It's a nightmare. Everything's falling apart." And they did come back, and that's why at the end of the second season, you start to see this narrative cohesion start to come back into it that starts being truer to the spirit of the franchise and everything. But seeing as how you finished those 2 seasons, you've seen Fire Walk with Me. I mean, to say that at the time when it came out, prequel shock was a foreign concept to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
What is your reaction as somebody who watched those 2 seasons? Because I have a friend who still rails against Fire Walk with Me because it doesn't line up exactly with certain aspects of things that were said during the television show. Sort of a complaint that we should all be familiar with the Star Wars prequels and stuff like that, where it's like, well, why didn't we hear about Qui-Gon before and stuff, along those lines. Do you think that Fire Walk with Me works as a companion piece to the series, or do you think that it's better if it stands alone?
Yeah, no, I mean, to be fair, I do not think that I would pick up on subtle things which contradict, what was on the show, to be completely honest. And I mean, the big thing that I picked up on was that Lara Flynn Boyle wasn't in it. That was disappointing to me.
There were reasons for that. You remember during the show how it seemed like there was an awkward love interest thing lining up with Audrey Horne and Dale Cooper?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Kyle MacLachlan was dating Lara Flynn Boyle off screen.
Oh, okay.
The word through the years is that Lara Flynn Boyle put a stop to that and was very difficult about it, and so they found a way around all of that.
Okay, yeah,
So,
I looked on IMDb and they said it was because she had 4 movies scheduled at the same time or something. But
I keep in mind I'm repeating hearsay, but it is something that is so ensconced in the Twin Peaks fan base as gospel that the idea is firmly planted out there that they didn't care if she came back. They were perfectly fine with replacing her.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of the trivia, I thought it was surprising how the movie almost didn't get made because none of the main cast members wanted to come back. That seemed a little strange to me. But especially Kyle MacLachlan, who
he was caught in the trap. He didn't want to be typecast.
Yeah.
The same trap that catches so many actors where they're like, "Oh, kill my character. Oh no, I don't want to be typecast." I will never understand anything like that, because if I were ever in that position, I would go Carol O'Connor with it and I will play this part till the day I die. I will, it's a steady paycheck and I'm an actor. I am riding that train until it doesn't pay off anymore. That's,
Yeah. I mean, I guess what I would see there is someone like Kyle MacLachlan, who's in this show, which is very critically acclaimed and everything like that. It's oh, this is my ticket to do what I want to do, And I mean, much like George Clooney has succeeded in that regard, that kind of thing. But sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know. But it seems like
Kyle MacLachlan's had a decent career.
Yeah,
he has.
Yeah, no. But it seems like in this case, David Lynch and Kyle MacLachlan had such a good working relationship that he would be like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do a movie. Sure, why not? Because, this is a character that we've established and it's a thing that we've been doing. And, we worked on Dune together and all those other things. And why not? But,
yeah. Well, I know there was, originally he was like, his heels were dug in and then he relented. Like, that's what steered it toward the structure that it wound up in, and then he sort of relented a little bit and said, you know what, I would do more of this or something.
Right.
I mean, so you haven't seen the cut stuff from Fire Walk with Me?
No.
There's a lot of stuff that went on the cutting room floor that would have gone a long way to making the fans a lot happier, because it was a lot more fan service in those cut scenes.
Yeah.
That would have tied it into the show.
I guess it's a type of thing where you really do have to cater to, the fan base, but also make it a standalone movie in a sense. And I think especially like in Lynch's case, where he is this, sort of like auteur, I can see his thinking of like, I want this thing to stand on its own, like I can see that.
Yeah.
But, and I mean, I think it kind of, like I was kind of watching it throughout that to see like, does it work on its own? And yeah, it pretty much does. I mean, I think it works better having seen the show, but, yeah, I mean, I think it is kind of, because it is a different type of story. It's not a mystery. It really is everything that leads up to it, and it's one of those things where it's it's not just like, let's see what these characters were doing before. Like it literally is like the show starts with this incident, and now the entire show is trying to figure out what it was that happened. And here they're like, well, we're going to show you exactly what happened. So I think that's kind of a different type of prequel in a sense, and I think that it's interesting. I mean, one of the things that I heard, which was also interesting, was he had like ideas for like a few more movies that would sort of like spin off of it, following like different characters. And I mean, but this one didn't make any money, so
no. This was definitely, I think, I mean, it's good that he made it stand on its own. I know that when I went back and I cracked open my Blu-ray set, I purposely watched Fire Walk with Me before I went back and rewatched the series, because I did not want to be biased and have that expectation laying on it. And I actually reacted a lot better to it, and I actually think it's much stronger than I did back in 1992 when it came out. But it's really interesting, because pairing that with what you said about Mulholland Drive, the new Twin Peaks: The Return, the season that they just had, that was, in Lynch's words, an 18-hour movie. Mm-hmm. That is fascinating to me, because it much more fully indulges the Fire Walk with Me aspect of the show than it does the traditional ABC format of the show.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's way more Fire Walk with Me inspired than anything else.
And that's
which
cool.
A lot of people didn't go along with.
I mean, I don't know. It's so weird. Because like Twin Peaks is always one of those shows where you hear about and people are like, this is, cinematic television. There's Twin Peaks, back in the day, back before Sopranos or whatever. It's like, there's Twin Peaks and there's X-Files, and that's pretty much it, And I mean, just watching this, it's like, or watching this show, it's like, I guess, but that's not what I was expecting when this show started. I mean, or when I started the show, like just the weird screwball like comedy in it and everything, like to the point of like just being just sort of like jokey for jokey's sake, which I don't necessarily think that that's a negative, I think it may be out of place with what they're trying to do on the whole here, but like it doesn't feel extremely cinematic to me, really. I mean, not more so than X-Files, for example. And I don't know. So seeing like this movie, right? I was kind of expecting something, even though I had seen the show. I was thinking like, well, this is going to be darker than the show and everything, and it was. But there are still moments where it's like, this is weird. This is weird that they're doing this here. I don't quite understand their logic, but that's okay.
Well, I think Fire Walk with Me, and I think that it's really interesting because I found myself questioning. I still have to rewatch. I watched the Twin Peaks: The Return, and I loved it. I adored it. I thought it was brilliant and wonderful, but I have to challenge myself on it, and I have to go back and rewatch it because I think part of my reaction, both to when I went back and I rewatched Fire Walk with Me and when I watched Twin Peaks: The Return, is that Lynch at the very least is doing something so radically different than what I'm usually getting that I think at least part of my reaction is rooted in the fact that this is different. I don't know what to expect. This is way out there, and I'm not going to know the story beats, and I don't know when the humor is going to come, and I don't know when I'm going to get freaked out, and I don't know when it's going to be terrifying, and all of those sorts of things. And I do think that Twin Peaks, as much as I adore the show, as much as I think it stands up, with the exception of that patch in the second season, I think that there is very much a large nostalgia aspect that plays into it when I go back and revisit it, because it was at the time so incredibly different from what anybody else was doing on television. They'd had Murder, Who Shot JR, they'd had all of those sorts of things, but to have a show that dealt with, essentially when you look back, the whole thing is a very weird metaphorical way of dealing, with child abuse. Like it's the same sort of thing that he explores in Blue Velvet. And this isn't to take anything away from Mark Frost, because Mark Frost had a hand in it too. Lynch gets all of the credit, but Mark Frost had a really heavy hand in creating Twin Peaks. He's like he's like Bill Finger to David Lynch's Bob Kane, where it's like there was another guy that helped with Batman, guys. Let's give him a little bit credit here. But the whole thing of it was just that it was so incredibly unique. It was so, it's just like, nowadays I think that there are films that I react to in a much more positive way because it's not just another franchise film. It's a splash of water and it's, okay, this is what cinema can do. Awesome. Yeah,
and I mean, I can see that, especially in regards to, I mean, like that was one thing which I kept on thinking while watching it was like, now we've seen things like that and everything, but, knowing sort of like the climate of network television in, 1990 or whatever, I was like, how did this get made? How did someone say, yeah, let's do this? That's so bizarre to me. But... so good.
Well, that's the second season opener. That still stands as one of the most terrifying sequences in television history to me, where you see Ronette Pulaski in the hospital bed starting to wake up from her coma, and you see the flashes of what went down when Bob killed Laura. Mm-hmm. Like that, I remember going into school, after it aired, and everybody standing around who did watch Twin Peaks, like, did you sleep last night?
Yeah.
I don't think I could sleep anymore. That was awful. And like, so it really did push an envelope. I think that it still stands overall, but I can understand why. Like, it's sort of like introducing somebody to Star Wars for the first time now, mm-hmm. who didn't grow up with it and didn't see it. Their reaction is going to be somewhat diluted from the fact that they came up through the era that was influenced by Star Wars. So there's nothing about it where they can have any sort of spark of how different it was at the time. They can still see it. They can still recognize how perfect it is and how wonderful, but they'll never have that moment of that spark going off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can appreciate it for what it is and everything like that, but ultimately, I don't think that it's... I mean, like, I'll never rewatch Twin Peaks. You know what I mean? I would like to see the new season, but, you know, I'm not going to pay to get Showtime to watch, you know what I mean, or whatever that it's on.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. Maybe if there's another show on Showtime, which I'm going to watch, then I'll check it out. But it's just I don't know. It's just okay. But I do, and because I mean, this is the thing. Like going to that Mulholland Drive thing, you know, where they're seeing a whole bunch of like external Lynch stuff and everything. There was, I don't know, something about that which I did appreciate a lot, and something which I think about a lot. There's this, it's just like a little like PSA that I don't even know where it came from, but it's like John Waters, and he's just like sitting in a chair, like smoking a cigarette, and he says something along the lines of, you know, like, get more out of life, see an effed up movie. And like, it's like one of those things where it's like you'd expect him to say that, whatever, but I think about that all the time, and it sort of like really influences like my movie watching, you know, kind of like choices and stuff. And that's, you know, sort of like what I mean, one of the reasons why I keep on coming back to Lynch, even though I never see anything of his that I like, because I keep on hoping that this will be the one that connects, you know. And you know, it's certainly his influence can be felt elsewhere. I mean, something that we were just talking about off mic, which I just recently finished season 1 of, is Legion, and like that has that, you know. And I think it's not as weird as Twin Peaks, right? But it's also part of the X-Men franchise, you know. And it's like, okay. This would literally, I mean, this is basically like if David Lynch were to do an X-Men show, this is what it would be, you know? And it's not that much of a stretch to say that that's what it is. It's really, really out there. And I don't know, it's influenced the way that I've watched movies, not just the choices, but the way that I've watched movies. Like, you know, back in 2001, I was looking at Mulholland Drive and actively trying to put all the pieces together and figuring out like how it all fits. And now it's gotten to the point where like if I am, like when I watched Fire Walk with Me, I was like, I'm not going to be so concerned about the literal events as I am about what they mean. And I think if I do that and not really try to come up with explanations, just try to see what it is that he's going for in terms of the themes and stuff like that, that I'll probably appreciate it a lot more. And I think that I do. I think that that's why I appreciated Mulholland Drive more, and that's why I appreciated, you know, Fire Walk with Me. But it's still not, I'm still waiting for that next level thing, you know?
I remember seeing Lost Highway, and at the time, at the end of the movie, having a reaction like, F this movie. But it's a movie that I've continued thinking about relentlessly since I saw it for the first time. And I've never stopped thinking about it. And it's bizarre, because if you had asked me at the time that I saw it, I would have said, this movie's terrible. Don't waste your time with it. This is just complete nonsense. And then for some reason, something clicked with me, and I was like, oh, Expressionism. Cool. Got it.
Yeah, and that's the one, I saw that in high school too. Like I did like an independent study, like a film criticism, like independent study in high school. And basically it was the guy who was like the history and film and photography teacher saying like, I mean, it was really weird. You know, he'd be like, well, what are you interested in? What do you want to write about? Okay, write this paper, you know, or, you know, but then another part of it was him saying like, have you ever heard of David Lynch? Have you ever seen any of his movies? No? okay, well, here's Lost Highway and Blue Velvet. Watch them and come back and tell me what you think, you know? And
in high school.
In high school, yeah.
Huh.
So,
Okay.
so I did see Lost Highway in high school, and I'm like, I don't like this movie, but it's one which I've always wanted to revisit. I was really disappointed when I didn't get to see it as part of that festival thing. And one day I will go back and check it out for sure.
I think it's a forgotten one. Nobody ever brings it up when they talk about Lynch.
I hear a lot of people bring it. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah. I know, like Marcelo at the Talk Film Society. I think that's his favorite Lynch movie. You know, there's a lot of people who really do love that movie for sure. I don't think it's.
I'm running in the wrong circles then.
Yeah. You need to start.
I remember the soundtrack was pretty boss too because Trent Reznor had a hand in it.
Yeah, and I do like I found like a playlist on like one of the because like Apple's got all those playlists on, you know, their Apple Music or whatever, and they're like songs from '90s movie soundtracks, and like half the songs were from Lost Highway. I'm like, okay, I didn't know that was a thing, but okay, I guess it is. So
I wonder if they'll did they put the Natural Born Killers soundtrack on there?
I think they had a few things from that. Yeah, that's a really good soundtrack. Of course.
Yeah, there's one song I doubt that Apple Music has streaming on their playlist though. So it's Patti Smith's song that I don't think is going to make the cut.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that one doesn't go over well usually. So
all right,
yeah,
all right.
But you know, Lynch's actually just as a final note though is Lynch's loose use of music is pretty. It's one of his calling cards. You know, it's a stamp of a Lynch film. You know, do you think the Fire Walk with Me soundtrack stood out to you at all, or do you think that it's still when he's in his nascent stage trying to figure out how to make it work?
I thought it was pretty good. I think the things that stood out to me about it are, I think partially because of the nature of television, right? It's that sort of thing where you have like 4 pieces of music, which are composed for it, and you play them again and again and again. It almost became like a joke, and I think was sort of used to great effect in the original show because it's like, wow, this is playing like a love theme over this thing, which is like not at all appropriate for this particular scene, and I thought there was some humor there. And when the music starts in this one, and there's the whole thing with Chris Isaac and Kiefer Sutherland at the beginning, and it was very much Twin Peaksy, but it was not any of those themes. And I was like, this is weird. I mean, I guess this is a thing that they do for movies is, you take it and you got to make it a little different. But then like as soon as they get to Twin Peaks, like the theme song kicks in and I'm like, that's really well done. And then the way that they sort of were able to weave in and out of like the TV themes, I think was effective. But then there was also that whole sequence that was done in the club where the music is just, blaring, and you don't even hear the dialogue. You see subtitles. I thought that was extremely effective, and I wonder why more movies don't do that, to be honest. But it really was sort of, it reminded me of like Magnolia and stuff, like a lot of people complain about, and also like Dunkirk and everything, where a lot of people complain about not being able to hear the dialogue over the music. And it's like, you're not supposed to, I don't think, really,
Right.
They're trying to say like, it's just as important or whatever. And, I thought that was really well done. For sure.
Well, a funny note about the soundtrack is I listened to on cassette tape, kids, the Twin Peaks soundtrack like nonstop when the show was on.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I was obsessed with the music like anybody else who watched the show. I'll never forget. There was a girl. I remember her name, but keeping things anonymous. I remember we were at a speech and debate trip because, of course, I was on the speech and debate club. Why wouldn't I be? And I was listening to it on my little Walkman. And she asked to listen to the music, and I was like, "Oh, it's from Twin Peaks," and she didn't know it. And I was like, "Oh, you've never seen it? Okay." And I gave her the headphones, and this is in the days even before earbuds. So I gave her the headphones to listen, and Laura Palmer's theme was playing, and she actually, like, a tear came down her cheek. She was like, "That's so beautiful. That's an amazing piece of music." I was instantly smitten with her. I asked her out on a date, and she brutally turned me down. I was like, television lies. It always lies. Even when you're just listening to the soundtrack from a TV show, that stuff never happens the way it happens in TV.
Yeah.
It was a wake-up call. It really, really kind of was.
Oh, well.
So, yeah, I doubt she even remembers me or the incident, but it tends to make an impression on a young man's mind when that happens. So, I'm thrilled that you saw it. I'm thrilled that you enjoyed Firewalk with me. If people want to talk to you about Twin Peaks and talk about that stuff, where can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Mumbles3K, and I'm sure it'll come up on my other show, which I'm just getting started, which people should check out if you like hearing me talk. Film Damage, which is a show about movies from the perspective of the booth. Me and Max, two former projectionists, talking about movies, talking about film projection, and all the rest of it. So head on over to filmdamagepod.com and check that out, or you can find us on iTunes or whatever.
It's an excellent show. I do recommend people listen to it.
And it's got some snazzy John Mills artwork.
Yeah. It's mark of any good podcast, really, when you think about it.
It's definitely true. Yeah.
And you can find me here on the network co-hosting Aggressive Negotiations with Matthew Rushing, and you can find me out there in the ether co-hosting Words with Nerds with my pal Craig, both, of course, available wherever you find your podcasts. And if you want to talk to me online, I'm available as Kessel Junkie on your social network of choice. So thank you for joining us this week, and we look forward to joining you next week here on Great Shot Kid, when we'll see you, and you'll see us, under the sycamore tree.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.